What, Inditex did this voluntarily? Where are they based, by the way?
Inditex are a Spanish based.
And this was their retail employees or their contract employees as well?
This is their supply chain employees.
Full supply chain.
Their full supply chain. And our agreement with Inditex actually didn't come out of the fact that we fell in love with each other immediately. It came out of disaster. The collapse of a factory in Bangladesh, which killed many workers, injured others.
That was their contractor.
One of their suppliers.
Their supplier, yeah.
And we began to work together to try to resolve the problems that arose from that collapse. And we recognized that it was better to work jointly rather than separately. We could achieve more. And then we looked at other problems in their supply chain. And after a time, it was clear that we could achieve much more by cooperation and coordination rather than essentially by conflict or campaigning or whatever. And that resulted then in, I suppose, a more marriage-like contract, the Global Framework Agreement. And in the process, I mean, in 18 months, we have succeeded in securing the reinstatement of more than 1,500 workers who had been fired through that supply chain for trade union activity. But we don't just stop there, because that's a sticking plaster approach. In each of those companies, we looked at introducing clear-cut industrial relations management systems that would provide for mature systems of industrial relations going forward, so that when problems arise again, there are methods, there's a system in place to deal with them. You know, certainly in the textile, garment, and leather sector, the industry will never be free of problems. Everybody has to recognize that. The real advance, if we are going forward to be sustainable, is having systems in place that will deal with those problems when they arise, to the satisfaction of everyone concerned. And that's what I say, the 4 wins situation.
Can I come back on this question?
Sure, quickly, and because I do want to take a question from the floor.
Yeah, let me just say, sorry.
Christy, go ahead.
On the question of your original question about having the CSR movement led to some extent by companies that don't allow unions in their workplace. I mean, I think that is a source of great criticism of the CSR movement generally. It is a great hypocrisy to claim to respect human rights around the world and yet deny your workers the freedom of association.
But just let me, again, I may be stepping onto thin ice here, but the freedom of association doesn't per se mean working in a unionized environment,
No, it doesn't.
But so we don't know that Starbucks is opposed. I assume they favor the freedom of association.
I don't know about Starbucks, but I know that Whole Foods takes a very public position that it is opposed to have its workers having a union in its facilities.
And that's not a legitimate position in a sort of marketplace where we debate these things?
It's about choice. It's about when workers choose to belong to a union and to bargain collectively, that they're enabled to do so. And that means that unions have to have access to their members and so forth. And, you know, I'm surprised that, Mark, that you are so shocked about this, because, you know, we can show you daily where people are simply denied access to the advice of their union, where there is no will to sit down and bargain with the union, etc.
No, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But I don't...
I think it's not a question of
legal...
legal...
Let's go to the floor, though, rather than debate this. Go. Slow down. Sound's coming up now.
Sounds up? Hi, Diane Osgood from BSR. I'd like to ask a question around leadership and sustainability. We talk a lot about the green economy and that can produce jobs. It'll be fantastic. We know that if we're going to tackle climate change, we have to fundamentally rework our sources of energy, the distribution, and a lot of really basic things on what we do. Of course, that's going to impact the employment market. And as you said, there's a promise of new jobs. Fantastic. In the last 6 weeks, we've really understood that our financial markets are in a pretty bad shape, and that is actually having a huge impact on the employment market. So if you take these two things together, I asked the union leaders, what leadership can we expect from you to bring about the change that we really need, both in how we manage our environment and also how we manage our financial institutions?
Ooh.
Well, on the environment front first, then it's like anything else. We have to have the capacity to see the skills developed. That's a priority for us. To bargain around energy efficiency processes, to engage with governments and corporations around new jobs. And if you look at who's out there with some of the ideas, the ITUC recently with the ILO and the UNEP put out a major study on green jobs. In lots of countries, unions have put out work on green jobs. In Germany, I think they claim 1.2 million green jobs and 500,000 more on the drawing books. In the UK, they put out a target 2 months ago of 1 million green jobs in the next few years. We've certainly said we can grow in little Australia 500,000 new jobs on top of what a business as usual model would be. But it needs us to get three things right. The policy settings, and that means regulation to support company investment, the joint investment where it's necessary, a kind of multi-skilling or trans-skilling approach where we're taking people from, who've got aviation engineering experience and putting them in wind technologies, or we're looking at people traditionally in manufacturing processes, now manufacturing biomaterials, or you're restructuring the waste environment totally. We want to bargain around those things, and certainly for my union movement, that's an agenda right now. We're looking at the bargaining clauses that will transform the manufacturing processes and the energy usage. And we say we want to make those dirty industries like steel and aluminium and cement and so forth, we want to be making those things in 30 years' time, because you're going to make them somewhere around the world, just as we are today. But we've got to get a tough love approach where any compensation that goes with a carbon trading scheme comes with a plan to sustain it. So this is big ticket business for us. It's like, the equivalent of the Industrial Revolution in some ways all over again, just reframed. On the question of the global financial markets, well, we've been saying for 15 years that this was, that the world was in trouble. And I think as early as 5 years ago in Davos, people like Larry Summers and others were standing with us saying that when the US profit to wages share was like a set of alligator jaws, and you had a 30-year high, and you didn't have collective bargaining to close the gap, you had no increase in your minimum wage for 10 years, from $5.50 until recently, then why is it not rocket science to understand if you bring two things together, the casino capitalism that says we're going to leverage profit from debt, and the fact that American workers didn't have enough money to pay their mortgages, that you wouldn't see the system unravel. And that's exactly what's happened. So we get a new chance now to build a new system of global governance for financial markets, and it must be transparent. There must be re-regulation, not stupidly, not just for red tape, but serious re-regulation that says that the financial base that props your endeavours up and our endeavours as working families must be secure. So this is a new chance to build that global governance on all fronts, on the question of trade, on the question of the environment and climate change in particular, and a new market around carbon trading, and on the governance question. And next week, the G20 talks, in my view, will be a big test. Can we reinvent, just as they did with the Bretton Woods Agreement, a whole new development of commitment to a global governance around finances, or will we fail because of self-interest? Big test.
Well, now that there are 5 questions from that corner of the room, I'm sorry to tell you we're out of time. Can you all join me in thanking our panelists, Sharon, Christy, Neil?
Thank you.